Stop scrolling. You're this right now. Soulmate needs you to hear. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay until the very end because this begins with a moment that feels impossible to ignore. Stop scrolling. Your soulmate needs you to hear this right now. Listen carefully, because sometimes the most important message isn't the one we expect to hear, it's the one that changes the way we see ourselves. Tonight's story is about two hearts, separated by distance, uncertainty, and time, yet connected by lessons neither of them realized they needed. The night was unusually quiet as a gentle breeze moved beneath a sky filled with countless stars. Somewhere, one person sat alone by a window, holding a warm cup of tea, wondering if they had missed the opportunity to tell someone how much they truly mattered. They had replayed old conversations in their minds so many times that every word had become part of their heartbeat. Yet one sentence remained unspoken, hidden behind fear, hesitation, and the belief that tomorrow would always provide another chance. What happened next changed everything. As midnight approached, they opened an old notebook they hadn't touched in months. Between its pages were handwritten thoughts from another season of life. Moments of laughter, quiet hopes, difficult lessons, and dreams that had once seemed so close. One page caught their attention more than any other. It simply read, "If I ever find the courage to speak honestly, I hope it's before life reminds me how precious every moment really is." Reading those words filled their eyes with tears, not because of regret alone, but because they suddenly understood how often fear had stolen opportunities that kindness could have transformed. They quietly whispered, "I don't want silence to tell my story anymore. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you." The following morning, before sunrise, they decided to leave the house and walk through the peaceful streets while the world was still asleep. The cool air felt refreshing, and every step seemed lighter than the last. As they reached a nearby park, they noticed an elderly couple sitting together on a wooden bench. They weren't speaking. They didn't need to. One gentle smile between them carried decades of trust, patience, forgiveness, and shared memories. Watching them, the person realized that the strongest relationships are rarely built through grand gestures alone. They are built through countless small choices, listening with empathy, speaking with honesty, showing appreciation, and choosing kindness every single day. Listen carefully. Later that afternoon, they met a trusted friend who had stood beside them through every season of life. The friend looked at them thoughtfully and asked, "If you had one opportunity to tell someone what you've learned from this journey, what would you say?" They remained silent for a long moment before answering softly, "I would tell them not to wait. Don't wait to say thank you. Don't wait to forgive. Don't wait to encourage someone who needs hope. Don't wait to tell people they matter. Life becomes meaningful through moments we choose today, not promises we make for tomorrow." The friend smiled because those words came from experience, not imagination. In that conversation, they discovered that wisdom often grows quietly inside the heart long before we recognize it ourselves. Stay till the end because the most emotional part of the story is still ahead. That evening they returned home and looked into the mirror with a peaceful smile. For the first time, they were no longer searching for perfect answers about another person's feelings. Instead, they asked themselves a much deeper question: am I becoming the kind of person who brings peace wherever I go? the answer wasn't found in one dramatic moment. It appeared through dozens of small memories, offering encouragement when someone felt discouraged, choosing patience instead of anger, apologizing sincerely after mistakes, and remaining compassionate even when life felt unfair. They realized that genuine love is revealed through character more than words. As another sunrise slowly brightened the horizon, they opened their notebook once more and began writing a new chapter. This time there were no pages filled with fear or endless questions. Instead, they wrote about gratitude. They thanked every difficult season for teaching resilience. They thanked every misunderstanding for teaching empathy. They thanked every goodbye for reminding them never to take today's conversations for granted. Most importantly, they thanked life for showing them that love's greatest purpose is not to make us perfect, it is to help us become kinder, wiser, and more courageous human beings. My beloved child, remember that this is a fictional story created to inspire hope and reflection. Perhaps the message you needed to hear today isn't that someone somewhere is secretly thinking about you. Perhaps the message is much closer than that. It is the quiet reminder to live honestly, appreciate the people who are part of your life, forgive where healing is possible, and never allow fear to silence kindness. Those simple choices have the power to transform ordinary days into unforgettable chapters. And as the golden light of a brand new morning filled the sky, the person quietly closed the notebook and stepped outside with renewed hope. They no longer carried the heavy burden of wondering what might happen someday. Instead, they embraced the gift of today. They smiled at strangers, thanked the people who had supported them, reached out to old friends, and walked toward the future with an open heart. Somewhere beyond the sunrise, countless beautiful moments were already waiting, not because destiny guaranteed a perfect ending, but because every day offers another opportunity to choose love through honesty, compassion, patience, and gratitude. And that simple choice has the power to change everything. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay until the very end because the story is about to take an unexpected turn. Listen carefully. After choosing to embrace each new day with gratitude instead of fear, the person you love believed the hardest chapter was finally behind them. They smiled more often. They carried themselves with quiet confidence. Yet deep inside, one question still remained unanswered. Had their journey truly changed them, or would they return to old fears the moment life tested them again? They didn't have to wait long to discover the answer. Sometimes the greatest lessons arrive when we least expect them, disguised as ordinary moments that quietly reshape our hearts forever. What happened next changed everything. One rainy afternoon, while walking home through familiar streets, they noticed a young musician sitting beneath a small shelter, playing a gentle melody on an old guitar. Only a handful of people stopped to listen, yet the musician played with complete joy, as though the entire world were watching. Curious, they stayed until the song ended. Before leaving, they asked, "Why do you keep smiling when hardly anyone stops to hear you?" The musician laughed softly and replied, "Because I don't play to be noticed. I play because this is who I am." Those simple words settled deeply into their heart. They realized that real love works the same way. We do not choose kindness because we are guaranteed a certain outcome. We choose kindness because it reflects the person we decide to become. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you. That evening they returned home and reflected on every chapter of their journey. They remembered the nights spent worrying about things they could never control. They remembered searching for signs, trying to solve mysteries that only time could reveal. But now, for the first time, they understood that the greatest sign had never been hidden somewhere outside of them. It had been quietly growing within them all along. Every challenge had strengthened their patience. Every disappointment had deepened their compassion. Every difficult season had taught them that peace begins the moment we stop allowing fear to write the ending before life has finished the story. Listen carefully. As darkness filled the sky, they opened their notebook once again, but this time they didn't write about uncertainty. Instead, they wrote a letter to their future self. If you ever become afraid again, they began, remember this day. Remember that your heart survived every storm you once believed would break you. Remember that every sunrise brought another chance to begin again. Never forget that your greatest strength was never certainty, it was your willingness to keep choosing hope even when you couldn't see the entire path ahead. Reading those words aloud filled the room with a quiet sense of peace they had never experienced before. Stay till the end because another beautiful realization is about to unfold. The following morning, they visited the same peaceful park where so many important moments had taken place. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, birds greeted the sunrise with cheerful songs, and the world seemed perfectly still. Sitting on the same wooden bench where they had once questioned everything, they smiled as they realized how much they had changed. The place looked exactly the same, yet the person sitting there was completely different. Fear no longer controlled every thought. Hope had quietly become stronger than doubt. Gratitude had become louder than regret. They finally understood that healing rarely happens all at once. It happens one honest decision, one act of forgiveness, and one moment of courage at a time. My beloved child, remember that this is a fictional story created to inspire hope and reflection. Sometimes the message we believe is coming from someone else is actually the message our own heart has been waiting to hear. It reminds us to appreciate the people who stand beside us today, to speak with honesty, to forgive generously, and to trust that even the longest nights eventually give way to the light of morning. As another sunrise stretched across the horizon, the person quietly closed their notebook and looked toward the future with peaceful confidence. They no longer searched for perfect answers or impossible guarantees. Instead, they chose to live each day with integrity, compassion, patience, and gratitude. They understood that the most meaningful journeys are not measured by dramatic endings but by the quiet transformation that happens within the heart. And somewhere beyond that bright horizon, another beautiful chapter was already waiting. One filled with new opportunities, genuine connections, unexpected joys, and the timeless reminder that every day offers another chance to become the very best version of ourselves. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay until the very end because this is about to reveal the chapter that changes the meaning of everything that came before it. Listen carefully. Several days had passed since the person you love made the decision to stop chasing certainty and start embracing the present. Outwardly, life looked almost the same. The same sunrise greeted the morning. The same streets welcomed familiar footsteps. The same gentle breeze moved through the trees. But something inside them had shifted forever. For the first time in years, they were no longer waiting for life to begin. They realized that life had been unfolding quietly in every ordinary moment they had almost overlooked. What happened next changed everything. One afternoon, while organizing a box of old photographs tucked away in the corner of a closet, they found a picture that immediately caught their attention. It wasn't a perfect picture. No one was posing. No one was trying to create a memory. It was simply two people laughing at something so small that neither of them could even remember what had caused it. Looking at that photograph, they smiled through tears because they finally understood that the happiest moments are rarely the ones we carefully plan. They are the moments that surprise us while we are simply living with an open heart. They gently placed the photograph on the table and whispered, "Maybe love was never about perfection. Maybe it was always about presence. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you." That evening, they decided to visit a quiet place overlooking the city where they often went whenever they needed clarity. As the lights below slowly illuminated the streets, they sat in complete silence. The world around them continued moving exactly as it always had. Cars passed by. Families gathered for dinner. Friends laughed together in nearby parks. Watching those ordinary scenes reminded them that every person they could see was carrying hopes, fears, dreams, and unanswered questions of their own. They suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of compassion. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they found themselves asking, "How can I bring more kindness into someone else's life today?" That simple shift changed the direction of their entire journey. Listen carefully. The next morning, they visited an elderly teacher who had once given them advice during one of the hardest seasons of their life. The teacher smiled warmly and said, "You look lighter than the last time we met." They quietly nodded and replied, "I finally stopped trying to control every chapter one haven't lived yet." The teacher's eyes filled with quiet joy before responding, "Then you've learned one of life's greatest lessons. Peace doesn't come from knowing exactly what tomorrow holds. Peace comes from knowing that whatever tomorrow brings, you can meet it with honesty, wisdom, and compassion." Those words settled deeply into their heart, becoming another piece of the foundation they were slowly building. Stay till the end because another unforgettable realization is still ahead. Later that evening, they opened their notebook and began writing something they had never written before. It wasn't a letter filled with questions. It wasn't a page filled with regrets. Instead, it became a promise. They promised themselves they would never again postpone expressing gratitude. They would tell people they appreciated them while they still had the opportunity. They would apologize sincerely when they made mistakes. They would forgive without expecting perfection. Most importantly, they promised never to let fear convince them that silence was always the safest choice. They understood that the words left unspoken often become the heaviest burdens we carry. Then came the quiet moment that completed this chapter. Standing beneath a sky overflowing with stars, they closed their eyes and took one slow, peaceful breath. For the first time, they no longer felt like someone searching for missing pieces. They felt whole, not because every dream had already come true, but because they had discovered that true fulfillment begins with the character we build inside ourselves. They smiled gently and whispered, "Whatever the future brings, I want my life to be remembered for kindness, patience, honesty, and hope." Those words were carried away by the evening breeze, but their meaning remained forever within their heart. My beloved child, remember that this is a fictional story created to inspire reflection and hope. Sometimes the message we need most is not about what someone else feels or what tomorrow might bring. Sometimes the greatest message is the reminder that every sunrise gives us another chance to become more compassionate, more courageous, and more grateful than we were yesterday. That quiet transformation becomes the beginning of every meaningful story. As dawn slowly prepared to rise once again, the person you love stepped forward with calm confidence. The questions that once controlled them had become lessons. The fears that once defined them had become wisdom. The waiting that once exhausted them had become patience. Looking toward the bright horizon, they realized the journey was no longer about finding perfect answers. It was about living each day with an open heart, treating every person with kindness, and trusting that the most beautiful chapters are often written one small act of love at a time. Somewhere beyond the sunrise, another extraordinary beginning was already waiting, and this time, they were finally ready to embrace it without fear. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay until the very end because this chapter begins with a feeling that cannot be explained by logic alone. Listen carefully. After everything the person you love had learned, they believed they had finally reached the end of their journey. Yet life has a remarkable way of revealing one final lesson just when we think the story is complete. As another quiet dawn unfolded across the horizon, they stood outside watching the first rays of sunlight touch the earth. The morning felt different. Not because the world had changed overnight, but because they had. The restless heart that once searched endlessly for answers had slowly become a peaceful heart that trusted each new day to reveal its own purpose. What happened next changed everything. While walking through the same familiar streets they had traveled countless times before, they noticed small moments they had always overlooked. A neighbor helping someone carry heavy bags. A father patiently teaching his daughter how to ride a bicycle. A stranger holding the door open with a warm smile. None of these moments seemed extraordinary on their own, yet together they revealed something beautiful. Love was everywhere, not only in dramatic confessions or unforgettable reunions, but in ordinary acts of compassion repeated every single day. They quietly whispered, "Perhaps the greatest messages are not spoken with words. They are lived through kindness. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you." Later that afternoon they returned to the peaceful garden where they had spent so many hours reflecting on life. Sitting beneath the shade of an old tree, they closed their eyes and remembered every chapter of the journey behind them. They remembered the uncertainty that once kept them awake at night. They remembered the fears that convinced them they were not enough. They remembered the questions that seemed impossible to answer. Yet every one of those moments had quietly shaped them into someone stronger, gentler, and wiser. Looking back, they no longer wished to erase the difficult seasons. They were grateful for them because they had become the foundation of a heart capable of loving with greater understanding. Listen carefully. As the evening sky filled with shades of gold and crimson, an elderly gardener approached with a warm smile. Without knowing anything about the journey they had experienced, he simply said, "Flowers never compete with each other. They bloom when their season arrives. People should remember that too." Those simple words settled deeply into their soul. They realized they had spent far too much time comparing their path to someone else's, worrying that life was moving too slowly. But every meaningful story unfolds in its own time. Every heart grows at its own pace. Every lesson arrives exactly when it is ready to be understood. Stay till the end because the greatest realization is still ahead. That night they opened their notebook once again, not to search for answers but to celebrate the person they had become. They wrote about courage replacing fear, gratitude replacing regret, and hope replacing doubt. They realized that the message they had believed was coming from someone else had actually been growing quietly inside their own heart all along. It reminded them to forgive more quickly, to speak more honestly, to appreciate ordinary moments, and to never assume tomorrow will offer another chance to express kindness. Those truths became treasures they would carry for the rest of their life. Then came the quiet moment that completed this chapter. Standing beneath a sky filled with countless stars, they smiled peacefully and whispered, "I no longer need life to be perfect in order to be grateful. I no longer need certainty in order to have hope. I no longer need every answer to move forward with confidence." Those words were not spoken from a place of wishful thinking. They came from experience, growth, and countless small victories over fear. In that moment they understood that the strongest hearts are not the ones that never struggle. They are the ones that continue choosing kindness after disappointment, trust after uncertainty, and hope after difficult seasons. My beloved child, remember that this is a fictional story created to inspire hope and reflection. Sometimes the most important message we will ever hear is the one that reminds us to live fully today. Appreciate the people who walk beside you. Encourage those who need hope. Forgive when healing is possible. Speak words that bring peace instead of fear. Those simple choices create a life far more meaningful than chasing perfect answers. As another sunrise slowly appeared beyond the horizon, the person you loved took one final look toward the bright morning sky and smiled with quiet confidence. The road ahead remained unwritten, yet they no longer feared the unknown. They welcomed it with an open heart, a grateful spirit, and the quiet assurance that every new day carries another opportunity to become more compassionate, more courageous, and more loving than the day before. And somewhere beyond that golden horizon, another beautiful chapter was already waiting, not written by fear or uncertainty, but by hope, integrity, and the extraordinary power of a heart that never stopped believing in the goodness of tomorrow. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay until the very last word because this is where every chapter finds its purpose. Listen carefully. Stop scrolling. Your soulmate needs you to hear this right now was never truly about chasing a mysterious voice or waiting for a miraculous sign. It was always a fictional journey about discovering the quiet truths that have the power to transform an ordinary life into an extraordinary one. As the final night of this story gently faded into dawn, the person you love stood beneath a sky where the last stars slowly disappeared, and for the first time, there was no fear left inside their heart. There was only gratitude for every lesson, every challenge, every unexpected turn, and every moment that had shaped them into the person they had become. What happened next changed everything forever. They returned to the same quiet bench where their journey had begun. Months earlier, they had sat there carrying unanswered questions, wondering if they were enough, wondering if they had missed their chance, wondering if life had forgotten them. Now they sat in the very same place, but they were no longer the same person. They smiled softly as they realized that the bench had never changed. The sunrise had never changed. The birds still welcomed the morning exactly as before. The only thing that had changed was the heart that was watching it all. Fear had slowly become faith in tomorrow. Doubt had become quiet confidence. Waiting had become wisdom. Don't skip, because this changes everything. As the golden light stretched across the horizon, they opened their notebook one final time. Every page carried the memory of a different season. The first pages were filled with uncertainty. The middle pages were filled with growth. The final pages radiated peace. They picked up their pen and wrote one last sentence. The message I thought someone else needed to give me was the message life had been teaching me every single day. Love deeply, forgive quickly, speak honestly, appreciate today, and never allow fear to become the author of your story. They gently closed the notebook, not because the story was over, but because its lessons had become part of who they were. Listen carefully. As they began walking home, they noticed every small detail around them with fresh eyes. Children laughed without worrying about tomorrow. Flowers bloomed without comparing themselves to other flowers. Birds sang without wondering who was listening. The wind carried the fragrance of fresh rain, and the morning sun warmed everything it touched without asking for anything in return. In that simple beauty, they understood one final truth. Life is not waiting for us to become perfect before it gives us moments worth remembering. It is inviting us to notice the miracles hidden inside ordinary days. Stay till the end because the greatest realization has finally arrived. They whispered quietly, if I ever meet someone who walks beside me through life, I want them to meet the person I became because of this journey, not the frightened version who lived inside endless questions. Those words carried no sadness. They carried hope. They no longer wished to be rescued from uncertainty. They had learned how to walk through uncertainty with courage, kindness, patience, and compassion. That quiet transformation became the greatest gift they could ever offer to themselves and to everyone whose path would one day cross theirs. My beloved child, remember that this has always been a fictional story created to inspire hope and reflection. Sometimes we spend so much time searching for extraordinary signs that we overlook the extraordinary strength already growing within us. Every difficult season can teach resilience. Every disappointment can deepen compassion. Every new sunrise reminds us that no chapter has the power to define the rest of our story unless we allow it to. And now the journey reaches its beautiful ending. The sun rises completely above the horizon, filling the world with warm golden light. The person you love takes one final deep breath, smiles peacefully, and steps toward the future without carrying yesterday's burdens. They no longer need perfect certainty to believe in tomorrow. They no longer need every answer before taking the next step. Instead, they carry something far more valuable, a grateful heart, an honest spirit, and the quiet confidence that every new day is another opportunity to choose kindness over fear, hope over doubt, and love expressed through compassion rather than promises alone. As the final rays of morning light illuminate the path ahead, one lasting truth remains. The most beautiful love stories are not remembered because they were free from challenges. They are remembered because they transformed ordinary people into wiser, gentler, and more courageous human beings. The notebook is finally closed, but the heart is finally open. The questions have become wisdom. The waiting has become peace. The fear has become hope. And somewhere beyond this sunrise, a brand new beginning is already unfolding. One written not by destiny alone, but by every honest choice, every act of forgiveness, every moment of gratitude, and every quiet decision to love with courage. That is where this story ends, and where your next beautiful chapter truly begins.